Welcome to a new edition of Crux this evening, viewers. Let me begin by making a disclosure. I'm among those skeptics who believe that there was no need to rush to hold elections in Jammu and Kashmir. While I do believe that Jammu and Kashmir must return to participatory democracy, holding elections at this juncture is, however, an unnecessary invitation to competitive populist politics that will center on reversing the gains of the last few years. At least that's my belief, viewers. Already, the manifestos of most parties are promising to undo the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. Some leaders, speaking in whispers, are even promising to deliver to the Union territory greater autonomy in line with pre-1953 constitutional status for Jammu and Kashmir. That is, of course, after they succeed in restoring statehood. To add to these attempts at breaking the hard-won consensus over political reforms in Jammu and Kashmir is the delicate security situation. But now that elections have been called and the election campaign is underway, the die is cast, so to speak, and it is best to focus on outcomes. Will Jammu and Kashmir vote for change? Do new players challenging the old consensus forged among dynastic politicians stand a chance? Can the BJP install its own chief minister? Let's speak to Amitabh Mattu, a distinguished academic who knows Jammu and Kashmir like the back of his hand, and to Junaid Mattu, who is a charismatic, erudite practitioner of a new politics in Jammu and Kashmir, to supply answers to some of the questions that are cropping up in conversation around these elections. Let me first begin with you, Mr. Mattu. Can you draw the landscape for the benefit of our viewers of the context in which both intellectual, ideological and political, the context in which this election is now being held?
Is that for me?
That's right. Sorry. Yes, I should have said, Mr. Amitabh Mattu. We have two Mattus and distinguished ones at that on our show tonight. So yes, Amitabh Mattu, please.
Thank you very much. I think these are consequential elections, but they're also symbolic in many ways. First of all, it's after a decade that Jammu and Kashmir is going to have elections for a legislative assembly. The first time that Jammu and Kashmir is going to have elections as a union territory for a legislative assembly, and 5 years after 370 was abrogated, 35A was abrogated. So there are a lot of symbolism as well as substantiveness. I am one of those who actually believes that democracy, secularism, competitive democracy is embedded in the idea of India. So I would not in my worst nightmare days suggest an extension of a governor's rule, a lieutenant governor's rule, even for a day more than necessary. Of course, you will always be faced with the potential costs, potential risks when you have elections. You will have local and regional parties often have slogans which may not appeal to you, which might seem to you risky and dangerous, but that's part of democratic politics. That's part of elections. Remember, each one of the parties that's going to contest these elections is going to swear, each individual candidate is going to swear by the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India, without the 370, without the potency of 370, and one whose abrogation has been ratified by the judgment of the Supreme Court of India. So while they may suggest that they're going to try and turn the clock back, they know as much as any politically conscious resident of Jammu and Kashmir that there is no turning of the clock back. However, I think any state like Jammu and Kashmir, reduced as it is to a union territory now, with the promise of a state soon after, deserves a democratically elected government. Frankly speaking, you need to do an audit of what the last 10 years have achieved in terms of development and local governance. More importantly, I think you are going to see the fair play of competitive politics. In the valley itself, I see 4 parties actually competing. So you're going to have 4 regional parties competing. You have the Apni Party, which Junaid Sahab is affiliated to. You have the People's Conference of Sajad Loan, and the two parties which have been in power in the past, National Conference, which has been in power for most of the last 70 years, and the People's Democratic Party. Other than the two national parties like like the BJP and the Congress. And no one, I would say, even the best apologists can today tell you what the result will be. There is no way. What you can predict is that no single party will probably have a landslide. Now, there are those who believe that this could see a replication of the engineer Rashid phenomena, who defeated Umar Abdullah and Sajad Lone, where the strongest anti-establishment candidate in every constituency will be favored by the silent voter. I don't believe so. I think in parliamentary elections there's a different signaling. I think it'll depend on the work done. It'll depend on the connectivity of the candidate. More importantly, there's also the possibility that the Jamaat-e-Islami may enter the fray because they have sent signals, at least not boycott the election. They might or may have candidates which were their proxies through these parties. What is happening in the last few days, just to complete the picture, is a large number of candidates are moving parties from various others
Yeah.
to joining new parties, and you can see that across the party divide. Uh, the pulse in the valley, if you go to Srinagar, suggests that perhaps, and look, I'm saying this now as a complete observer and analyst without any interest in who's going to win or lose. The pulse of the valley suggests that the National Conference may have the largest number of seats, but that's really, the jury is still out.
Right.
I wouldn't want to second guess that. Rahul Gandhi and Mallikarjun
Kharge.
have now tied up an alliance with the Congress. Ram Madhav has been sent back to the valley, and frankly speaking, Ram Madhav is as astute a political analyst and a political actor in Jammu and Kashmir as you can find across the party divide. So interesting things, exciting things. I just believe that this is a reinforcement of the idea of India, reinforcement in the belief of democracy and giving people of Jammu and Kashmir a chance, however skeptical you might be, Rahul, about...
As I said, I just made a full disclosure in the interests of having a balanced debate. So I'm not going to, at any level, try to project my view here. I'm just going to ask some questions. Junaid Mattu Sahab, let me ask you now. In the past, it has been said that elections were rigged, perhaps, in the favor of one party or one actor or what have you. Is this grouse now a thing of the past as we go forward after the abrogation of Article 370, or do you have apprehensions as somebody who's challenging the established consensus? How do you feel?
Rahul, I'll take the liberty of, before answering that question, just, sticking my neck out and telling you that as a general rule, democracy is a messy affair. It's a messy affair in some of the most uncomplicated, uncomplex places in the country, in the world. Kashmir is a complicated place, in a lot of contexts, but there is absolutely no alternative to democracy. Democracy cannot be deferred in perpetuity as some sort of a preemptive measure to prevent strife or to prevent violence or to prevent a breakdown of law and order. That is, as Professor Mathu rightly said, that is completely against the very idea of India. So I believe, that the time for this election was yesterday, figuratively speaking. Not a day more should be spent waiting for it. I think the Supreme Court directive played a role, and I believe that the people of Jammu and Kashmir should get a right to choose their democratically elected representatives. And as Mr. Sajad Lone, I think he tweeted this a few weeks back, that let my biggest opponent win, but let democracy be the final victor. Coming to your question, if you could rehash that question.
Basically, the playing field or the pitch is being rigged in a particular way, this, that, the
About
other.
the elections that were rigged.
Yes. Is that apprehension,
Right.
this grouse,
So
a
Rahul,
thing of the past?
Rahul, yeah, the biggest, I mean, landmark, it's very ironic, rigging, we won 87.
That's right.
And a lot of political observers and historians, contemporary historians and political scientists, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir at large believe that the 1987 rigging formed the genesis of the turmoil that we all went through. There have been different formats of rigging in Jammu and Kashmir. There has been institutional rigging, there has been systemic rigging, and in 1987 we saw actual, literal rigging at the polling booth. But that is not to say that rigging was only limited to 1987. I believe that Indian democracy and democratic institutions are far more robust now. Our systemic integrity is far more robust now. I do not believe that rigging is an apprehension on the mind of an average Kashmiri. A level playing field, he might wonder if the transparency and accountability that should come with elections, each fellow Indian would have in any other state in the country. I do not believe that that is an apprehension shared by an average common Kashmiri. No, I do not.
So let me follow up a question with you on this, the next chapter. You see, many people say that there are certain parties who are the proxies of the center, and some of your own opponents are saying that there are these parties that have been injected by the center, they are propped by the center. There is therefore a kind of, how should I put it, queen of the pitch. So how do you respond to some of those who might turn around and say, no, the Apni party, you know, it has a backdoor understanding with this, that, the other, the BJP or the center, etc., etc. How do you address those people?
Well, that too is a traditional feature in our political narrative. The first recipient of that charge used to be the PDP. When the PDP was formed, it was the National Conference that said that this is L.K. Advani's party. It's formed by the Home Ministry of the Indian state, and that they have a truck with the powers that be.
Right.
And the National Conference, as we saw post 2019, embraced the same PDP in PAGD, and they, declared that we will collectively struggle and strive to restore the constitutional erosions, reverse the constitutional erosion that we witnessed in 2019. And then that PAGD came apart, and now National Conference is trading the same barbs on its electioneering stages that PDP is a party that was founded and conceived by New Delhi. Then there was a time when PDP said the same about National Conference, that they had National Conference was the first political party that allied with the BJP in 1999, I think 2001, when Mr. Umar Abdullah was the Junior Minister for External Affairs. National parties have always been seen suspiciously in Jammu and Kashmir, and that is also based on the psyche of a very robust sense of ethnocentric nationalism, a cultural identity. Jammu and Kashmir, especially the Kashmir province, has always been predominantly governed or ruled by regional parties.
Right.
So that is a part of a larger psyche that central parties are seen with suspicion, and these accusations have been traded, but none of the parties which are actually trading these barbs or hurling these abuses at the newer parties, be that our party or be that the People's Conference, can absolve themselves of their actual official alliances with the BJP. The first alliance was with the National Conference, the second, very recently, was with the PDP. So this is a seasonal, circumstantial trading of barbs and allegations.
Okay. Let me bring in Amitabh Mattu Sahab. Mr. Mattu, this yearning for peace we are hearing of now in the valley, and there is also this other narrative that people are no longer alienated from the center, from the mainstream, and they want to become stakeholders in the constitutional process. And if you look at the election that happened in July, the Lok Sabha elections in June, I'm sorry, and you look at the turnout figures, they seem to bear out that sort of thesis. Now, how much credit for this turnaround in perhaps the way the people are looking at themselves as part of this political process, how much of that credit must go to the political reforms undertaken in the last 5 years? I think you're on silent. Yeah.
The abrogation of Article 370, if you look at the positives and negatives, I think the biggest positive is that psychologically it removed the uncertainty surrounding Jammu and Kashmir and its relationship with New Delhi. This whole idea that Jammu Kashmir was special, and in fact it was a special state treated poorly, but that today that it is a union territory which may become a state, but its relationship is equal to that of any other constituent of the union, has removed that sense that there is a different kind of relationship, or psychologically that there is a different kind of feeling that we have about the connection with New Delhi. In terms of actual development on the ground, the jury is still out. But the whole idea of, say, Srinagar becoming a smart city is something that I, as at least a part-time resident of Srinagar, can only hope and imagine does take place. But at the moment, it's in terms of the past situation, in terms of regular problems of dealing with day-to-day issues, it's not improved significantly. However, the cycle of violence that came down in the last 5 years because of the extra visual and the kind of comprehensive measures that the central government situation meant that today we have had a huge number of tourists visit Jammu and Kashmir. The economy, I don't know. Tourism, again, there is a downside, given that the capacity of the Kashmir Valley to have so many tourists is going to impact on the ecosystem of the valley. People in Jammu and Kashmir in the elections will, one, suggest that after 370 there is a new enthusiasm for democracy, but also a new fire making that and themselves. For a long time, there was a sense of entitlement and victimhood. I think both have gone. This was contagious. At every level, in every place, whether it's Ladakh or whether it is Lakhanpur or Kashmir, that we have somehow been victimized. That's gone. Okay. You are seeing the full play of competitive politics.
Okay, so
beyond the point, Rahul, one sec, just beyond the point, apart from giving access to social security, no that India today can fix an election, can rig an election.
Okay. I'm glad that
the candidate has to fight these elections on their own. No one could have predicted and most people thought that he'll not be allowed to win. The very fact of Engineer Rashid's victory is symbolically reflective of the robustness of Indian democracy.
But it is also a cause of anxiety, and I'll come to that in just a few moments. But Junaid Mattu, let me ask you, if Article 370 is the psychological gap between the people of Kashmir and the Indian mainstream union, why are so many parties opposed to this and want to sort of restore this article?
Well, I mean, the moot question is that has the psychological gap been, bridged, or has it increased? It depends on who you are. There is different. There is an academic vantage point, then there is a day-to-day life vantage point. There are no simple answers. I disagree to start with that, well, as Amitabh ji said, that the sense of entitlement might have gone with her special status. I don't want to get into that argument, but
Okay.
to say that the sense of victimhood is gone is somehow taking a risk of trying to suggest there is a deep sense of hurt by dint of the very historical fact that we have become the first state in the country which has been downgraded into the Union territory, that there hasn't been a popular elected government for the last so many years, that this sense that an average Kashmiri can feel that he is not trusted with equal confidence to run his day-to-day affairs or be an arbiter of his destiny or her destiny, as would a counterpart in this. Somehow being wronged. I mean, I wouldn't call it victimhood,
Right.
but there is certainly the psychological gap might have, narrowed in a certain context, but it has certainly widened in a different context. The law and order situation has definitely improved. You cannot actually deny related incidents have increased in Jammu, but the street violence element that Kashmir used to be handicapped by, that's gone. The space for anarchy, if I may, the appetite or the tolerance for anarchy and disturbance of law and order, that has
So
been
let me ask you, if there
eradicated
is
from the
an
system.
appreciation that peace has returned and there is a certain degree of normalcy on the street, as you're saying, do you believe that the people will go out there and once again repose their faith in the that was associated with this sort of pathology of violence of the past?
Well, that remains to be seen, and that also brings me to the point that we should be very cautious in now has happened. Turnouts, and you know this, I know this as a student of elections and psephology, and I'm very sure that Amitabh ji knows this. Turnouts are of two kinds. High turnouts are of two kinds. High turnouts can, indicate a sentiment of anti-incumbency or anti-establishmentism, or they could very rarely indicate a sentiment which endorses what has happened. So the empirical study suggests otherwise. The high turnout, for instance, the high turnout we saw in Baramulla, North Kashmir, where Engineer Rashid defeated Mr. Umar Abdullah and Mr. Sajjad Lone, indicated the consolidation of an anti-establishment sentiment. A detainee under terror finance charges in Tihar jail wins an election and defeats a former chief minister and the president of another party. There is some sort of undercurrent that made that happen. So again, this is a very complex but I think it would be safe to underline the whole process with the hope that democracy, as fraught it is with various types of risks, is restored to the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
Well, viewers, let's draw a line at the bottom of this conversation right now because we've run out of time. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for expansively putting this entire exercise in context. On the crux, I take no positions, viewers, as you know. I have given you the views of the valley as we speak. We will come back with more editions focused on the polls in Jammu and Kashmir, described by some as the most consequential, perhaps in the last few decades. I'll leave it at this. Thank you for watching.